Hi, in this video, I'm going to be walking you through our powerful workflow designer, which allows you to create fully configurable, dynamic workflows with significant ease. To begin the process, first you have to click on the Studio tab at the top of the page. You'll then be redirected to the Certa Studio. Here, you can create a new app by clicking on the Create New App button. An app is essentially just a folder in which you're going to be putting your workflows. So I'm naming this Studio Tutorial. And once I've submitted, you'll then be able to see my app on the Development tab. Once I click it, I'll then be able to add processes or workflows in this folder. Once you click on Create New Process, I'll name this as Tutorial Workflow. And then all I have to do is click on Create Process. Once I do that, then my workflow will be visible, and then I have to click it to be able to configure it. Within the workflow, I can add swim lanes. Swim lanes are essentially just a group of tasks that, when submit, allow for your workflow to then be completed. The first swim lane that I'm going to be adding is third-party profile. Once I've written the name of the group, all I have to do is scroll down and click on Submit. Now you can see the swim lane on the left-hand side of the screen. It's been created. Within this swim lane, I can now create steps or tasks by clicking on Add New Step. Once I do that, I'll have an overlay that will allow me to create these steps. I'll name the step or the task Initial Risk Assessment. Once this is done, all I have to do is click on Submit, and the step will arrive under the swim lane. So we have our workflow, tutorial workflow. It has a swim lane third-party profile, and that swim lane has one task or step called Initial Risk Assessment. Now that we've created the skeleton of our workflow, all you have to do is go to Edit Process and then publish the workflow to be able to see it. And our workflow will then be visible. As you can see, here's our workflow, here's the status in progress, here's the swim lane third-party profile, and here's the step, Initial Risk Assessment. Once these are completed, you can then just simply click on Submit, and then the workflow will be finished. Now, we're going to be adding questions and relevant steps to demonstrate the true power of the Certa Design Studio engine. Users can create questions with dynamic interfaces and complex business rules to literally achieve any process level outcome that you can think of within Certa. As you can see, I've already created an approval step, but I'm going to firstly be editing the initial risk assessment step. Firstly, I'm going to add a field, and then when the overlay pops up, I'm going to type in the question, is the third party a public company? I'm going to set its field type as Boolean, which essentially means that this question is going to have a yes or no answer and no others. Once that's done, I'm just going to submit the question, and then you'll see it pop up right under the heading. I'm going to add a couple more questions like this, just to be able to show you what it's going to look like after we publish it again. And I'm going to show you one more question. Now this question is going to be slightly different from the ones that we've made before. This one is going to just have onboarding priority. So when these options appear, then we're going to go to the basic field types and we're going to select single select drop down. Now what this is going to do is that it's going to drop down several different options, and of those we're going to be able to select one of them. So here are the options for the drop downs. What we're going to do here is we're going to keep our first drop down option as low, 72-hour SLA or less. And the associated value is essentially just a value which it's going to be referenced in business rules. So I'm going to keep it as the exact same. The next one is going to be medium, 48-hour SLA or less. The same associated value. And then high, 24-hour SLA or less. And I'm going to keep the same associated value. Now that that's done, I'm going to submit it and show you how the dropdown is going to look like. So now that this is done, all we have to do is go to edit process, and we have to publish the workflow again. As soon as we publish the workflow, we can view that it has now 3 questions. Is the third party a public company, which can be answered with yes or with no? Will the third party integrate with company systems? Once again, yes or no. And our onboarding priority question, which now when you click on it, has 3 different options, the exact options that we mentioned before. So this demonstrates Certa's ability to show questions and their dynamic options however you want to configure them. So now that we've created our questions, we're going to go back to the designer and add scoring and visual indicators. Scores create powerful workflow processing options that can drive automation, expedite risk assessment, and drive efficiency and speed. Visual indicators, on the other hand, improve user experience and draw user attention to need-to-know information. The way that both of them can be incorporated here are via business rules, and I'm going to show you how they can be added into the workflow. So first you have to go to your initial risk assessment step, or the one that's here. And then you can see that I've gone through the liberty of adding a few extra fields. The first one is risk score. The next is the third party SOC 2/Type 2 certified? And the third is, which business units will the third party support? So the way they look in the workflow is as follows. Here's risk score, and here are the 2 additional questions. So what I want to do is, if yes or no is selected, I want this selection to automatically populate a risk score in the risk score field. The way that we're going to do that is by adding business rules to the risk score field. To access that panel, firstly, you have to go to the risk score. You have to see the 3 dots that are next to it. Click on that, and then you can click on Edit Field. This will redirect you to the Field Properties page. Here, on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see a Business Rules tab. Once you click on that, you'll be able to add a number of rules depending on our needs. We're going to be adding data inheritance rules, which essentially just take the value of another field or a value that we specify. Each description is mentioned on the eye icon at the top. Now, it's going to take around just 5 to 10 seconds to be setting these rules. That's how simple it can be. So if I add an inheritance rule and I add a condition in it that says, if is the third party a public company is equals to true, then set the value as 0. And then I add another rule which says, if is the third party a public company is equals to false, then add 5 into the risk score field. Then we've essentially just set both of our business rules. You can click on submit and then go back to the main tutorial workflow and publish the setup to see the changes. So we'll first click on publish, and then we'll see whether our changes have actually taken effect. So when I move to the workflow, if I click on no, then the risk score is automatically populated to 5. And if I click on yes, then it's automatically populated to 0. So now that we've added our risk scores and made sure that it inherits automatically, now we want to be able to add a visual indicator. In this case, we're going to add either red, amber, or green flags, depending on what number is selected here. The way that you do that is very similar. You just add a business rule. Firstly, we're going to be going back to our workflow designer. Then we go to our initial risk assessment step, and then we go to the same 3 dots and edit field of the risk score field. Now we go back to business rules, and instead of data inheritance rules, we're going to add red, amber, or green flags. So depending on the rule that we select, a red, amber, or green flag will show up next to the process. So if I say that if risk score is equals to 0, then set the flag indicator to green, for example. That's going to be one rule. And then if I set another rule saying that if risk score is equals to 5, then set the flag color to red. And that's all it takes. Now we submit the field, we go to the main tutorial workflow, and then we publish the setup. So as you can see, Now that yes is selected and the risk score is 0, there is a green indicator. If you go to no and the risk score is 5, then there's a red indicator. Depending on how you want to set the indicators, or depending on how you want to set the business rules for inheriting values or changing scores, this can all be modified and configured to each business need. Naturally, within the designer, you'll want to reorganize and optimize how questions appear in the user interface. To do so, it's really very simple. All you have to do is drag and drop. Here's how. So let's say I want to move onboarding priority above which business units will be the third-party support. The way that you can do that is if you go to the step level of initial risk assessment, you click on the 3 dots next to it, and then you go to edit step, you'll be redirected to the step properties. In this, you'll be able to see all the fields that you had set, the number of fields, and the exact sequence in which they're there. To change the sequence, all you have to do is go to edit sequence, find the field that you want to move. So I want to move onboarding priority above which business units will the third-party support, and I'm just going to drag and drop it here. Now that I've chosen my new sequence, I'm just going to click on save, and now it's automatically saved the new sequence that I have here. To publish this and see, all I've got to do once again is go to tutorial workflow, publish step, and click on publish. Now if I toggle back to the actual workflow, then you'll see that onboarding priority has now been moved above which business units will the third-party support. There may be a time where you as an organization require either someone external, like a third party or a vendor, or even someone internal, like an employee, to upload a document onto the workflow. Via Certa's Design Studio, that too is a possibility. In the example of this current workflow, if I want someone that says that they have a third-party SOC 2 or Type 2 certification, if they click yes, then I want them to have to upload that document. To be able to do that, you're going to have to use a few of the things that we've taught so far. Firstly, you go back to the step level, you add a field here. The field can be called document upload, or however you want to name it. It's going to have the field type of file upload. And once this is rendered, then the individual can then submit the document in this field accordingly. So I'm going to click on submit. And you can see that now the document upload field has been set. But there need to be two things that are done. One, I want to be able to make sure that this is the third-party SOC 2 / Type 2 certified. So I'm going to go to edit step, and then I'm going to edit the sequence where I move this underneath this field. Now I want to be able to show that this field is only going to be visible if this is selected as yes. To be able to do that, I'm going to go click on document upload. I'm going to go to its field properties, and then I'm going to go to its business rules. Once I do that, I'll have visibility rules right in front of me. So I'm going to say that if is the third-party SOC 2 / Type 2 certified is equals to true, then I want it to be visible. Otherwise, I don't. Now that that business rule has been set, all we have to do is go to the main tutorial workflow, go to publish setup, publish the workflow, and now I'm going to try to view the changes on the newly published workflow. So if I say yes to is the third-party Type 2 certified, a document upload field should arrive. And it has. Now, whoever's going to be answering this can upload the document based on their SOC 2 or Type 2 certification to prove viability. Now that we've walked through Design Studio and how it works, I'm going to go once more through the workflow to emphasize just how powerful the results can be with such a simple process. Firstly, we created is a third party a public company, and then we associated a risk score based on the answer that we've made. Depending on that risk score, we've also associated either a red or a green indicator that's going to pop up right next to the risk score as soon as it's answered. We can answer the next question as is. Then with this question, when you click yes, then we automatically triggered a document upload field. So now a third party answering this will need to upload a certification in order to then proceed further. Onboarding priority, we created a single select field. They can choose either of the options. And then in the last field, we didn't go into much detail about this, but this is a multi-select field. So it was made in the exact same way that the single select field was made, except this field type was drop down single select and this field type is drop down multi-select. Otherwise, it's made in the exact same way. You have options and then you have associated values for those options and then you just submit it. So if we submit this field, we'll go to an approval step. Now that we're in the approval step, you can see that I've taken the liberty to make one more field. This, through a business rule, I've associated to the status of the workflow. And the moment you click on yes, it moves from in progress to approved. And then when you submit the workflow, now the vendor or the third party automatically knows whether or not they've been approved. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, we've toggled back and forth between design and showing you how our changes render in the Certa platform. But once you're familiar with the studio, all of these steps can easily be done at the same time. We hope you see how quick and easy it is to create your own workflows in the Certa Studio. Thank you so much for watching.